Hello, and welcome to Fáilte Ireland's Introduction to Operational Skills Training, the online program. My name is Eddie Mead, and I work as part of Fáilte Ireland's Accommodation and Operations Development team. In this video, we will take a practical look at what operational skills training is and how it can be of benefit and add long-term value to your business. To get the most out of this resource, please use it in conjunction with the media presentation and other accompanying downloads. Some other resources that you or your team may find useful can be accessed on Fáilte Ireland's Learning Hub, and these include Introduction to Customer Service, the Fundamentals of Food and Beverage Service, and Developing and Implementing Standards of Performance, plus many more. The aim of this Introduction to Operational Skills Training presentation is to provide you with the skills, knowledge, and techniques that will enable you to carry out skills training at work. On completion of this online session, you will be able to describe the key elements of operational skills training, prepare, deliver, and check the effectiveness of an operational skills training session, and better position yourself as an operational skills trainer within your business. We want this program to make a real contribution to your business, and we have designed it to be clear, easy to follow, and very practical. You will be able to quickly implement the learnings into your business. In this program, we will discuss the following topics. Firstly, we'll talk about the role of training, and here we will take a look at a definition of training. We will list some of the benefits of training. We will also introduce you to two types or styles of training. Next, we will discuss the importance of standards in training. We will explain what SOPs are and their importance, and describe what an SOP consists of. Finally, we will look at an approach to operational skills training, following the ABC structure of a training session. We have designed this program to help you ensure that operational skills training becomes a normal part of your everyday activities. As you set out on your operational skills training journey, it's really important not to treat this as a task to be done, but rather as a beneficial process that can really transform your business, and if it's done correctly, can engage your team and excite your customers. There are many definitions of training, but for now we look at just one. Training is the passing on of skills and/or knowledge through instruction in order for a learner or learners to perform to the required standard. The important words here are instruction and perform to the required standard. As a trainer, you must show and teach all of the necessary steps that make up the task, which is what instruction means. The end result or goal of training is that staff are all performing to the required standards. That's why you must include all relevant standards in every piece of training that you do. This helps us to achieve consistency and reliability across all of our products and services, thus helping to ensure customer satisfaction. There is absolutely no point in teaching somebody the mechanics of a job and then spending the rest of your working life chasing up on the standards. Remember that training is not an event or a once-off happening. It should be a continuous process, so the better you are at it, and the easier your lives and the lives of those you train will be. So what staff require training? Well, all staff, both new and existing, will require training at some stage to a lesser or a greater degree. Initially, most of your training will focus on developing your new team members in terms of their confidence and their operational skills by training them to the standards required by your organization. Your existing team members, they may need refresher training if their performance has dropped below the standard for some of the operational tasks. And if you are introducing new standards or new equipment to your operation, then both new and existing team members will require the same training. Wherever possible, try and find out the level of previous experience or knowledge that your learner has of the task you are about to train. If you ignore their experience, you may demotivate them and you can come across as patronizing. So a good trainer will always build on what a person already knows. Generally in hospitality, there are two main styles or types of training utilized. They are operational training, which is often called technical, one-to-one, or skills training, which focuses on teaching technical, operational, craft skills to a learner on a one-to-one basis. Some examples of this might be setting a table, making a bed, pouring a pint, taking a card payment, or taking a reservation. The second type of training is known as knowledge-based training, which is sometimes called group or classroom training. Here, the focus is on providing information and knowledge to groups of people simultaneously. For example, hygiene, customer care, local attractions, menu knowledge, knowledge of products and facilities. This online session will focus only on the operational skills training, as a different approach is used when teaching knowledge. There are many benefits to training your team members, some of which are decreased stress. Staff members who are aware of what is required of them in terms of the standards and their performance, and who are provided with the necessary training and tools to carry out their roles, are less stressed in the workplace. Motivated staff. Staff who are trained regularly can feel as if they are being supported in terms of their technical skills and professional development. They feel valued, which can lead to high motivation. And when motivation is high, productivity automatically follows. Staff perform well, not because they have to, but because they want to. Increased professionalism. Staff have the skills and knowledge and confidence to perform in a professional manner to the standard required by the business and expected by the customer. Increased efficiency. Staff who were trained correctly learned how to work smart. They are more efficient and less likely to waste time making and correcting mistakes. Better prospects for staff. When you invest in the training and development of your team members, it affords them more opportunities and better prospects for career progression. Customer satisfaction. When staff are trained to deliver on the organization's standards, they will look for opportunities to meet and to exceed customers' expectations wherever possible. This leads to customer satisfaction. More profit. When staff are trained well, they make less mistakes, which cost money. Happy, motivated staff make happy customers, and happy customers make for a better bottom line. When customers are happy, they spend more. They don't focus on how much it costs. They focus on how good it was. Happy customers come back, and they encourage others to visit your business also. In essence, everybody gains from training. The staff members, yourself the trainer, management, customers, and of course, the business. You should always use your standards as the framework for every piece of training you carry out. So always train to your standards. I'd like you to imagine for a moment that you visited your favorite restaurant twice in the same month. The first time you went, everything was perfect, just how you like it. But the second time, things were a little off. You chose the same main course that you love, but this time the presentation was quite different and the portion size was slightly smaller. Your waitress was not very friendly and she spilled some wine on the tablecloth. It wasn't a bad experience by any means, but the standards were not the same as the previous time, and this detracted from your evening. However, the bill was the same as the last time. You left feeling a little let down by the experience and thought to yourself that for a change, you might try that new place in town next month. This, in a nutshell, is why SOPs matter. Without them, products and services will be inconsistent, not necessarily bad, but in today's competitive environment, being good is just not good enough. You need to excel and deliver a consistently great experience, and SOPs help you to do just that. So why do we need SOPs? This is often a question asked, and as I mentioned just a moment ago, the main reason we need SOPs is because without an agreed way of delivering your product and service, your customer's experience will be inconsistent. Even if you only have a small team, can you imagine if each one of them performed an important task their own way? How inconsistent your service would be from the customer's perspective. It is very important to emphasize here that by developing SOPs, you are not trying to standardize everything. You are simply guiding your team to do things the right way in order to deliver an excellent service and delight your customers. Employees will still complete the tasks with their own style and personality. So what are SOPs? For those that may not be totally familiar, a good place to start this section is to clarify exactly what we mean by SOPs. So they are a clear, concise, and measurable statement describing how a product or service should be delivered. They're an agreed and repeated way of doing something, a summary of best practice, and they're designed to meet and wherever possible exceed your customer's expectation, and they are always appropriate to your business. The goal of writing SOPs is to ensure that all employees are performing to a consistent, measurable level. The letters SOP can stand for Standard Operating Procedures or Standards of Performance. Standard operating procedures focus on the how the job is done. A procedure breaks down the completion of a task into clear steps that are understandable to all, which follow a logical sequence, and that are measurable. Whilst the standard of performance is more customer-centric and focuses on the end result as experienced by the customers. Many establishments only focus on the procedure, often to the detriment of the end performance. Both are important and should not be ignored. It is important to understand that an SOP comprises of two elements. Number one, the standard. This is the outcome we want to achieve from a particular task, what you want your staff to deliver, and your customer to receive and experience. And number two, the procedure, which is the detailed step-by-step process describing how we will achieve the standard, which can be understood by all. For every standard you identify in your business, you will need to write a procedure to help the staff members achieve your standard. Here on the screen are a couple of examples of what an SOP can look like. The first, every guest will be welcomed within 1 minute of arrival in a warm, professional, and courteous manner. And the second, all glasses will be presented hygienically clean, free from stains and chips, and polished to a shine where appropriate. See how the standards describe the outcome required. You will note that those standards are very clear. They are also measurable. Either it is achieved or it is not. You will also note that the emphasis of those examples is on the end product or the outcomes rather than how it was achieved or the procedure. You can see how the language used is concise and clear and outcome focused, and it is also measurable. What has happened here in the photographs? The standard is that the customer will receive a clean polished glass, but in reality, the customer has received the dirty glass. Has the standard fallen? We would say no. The standard is still that all glasses will be presented hygienically clean, free from stains and chips, and polished to a shine where appropriate. It is the staff member's performance that has fallen, or their performance is not up to the standard required. So would you agree in telling a staff member that the standards have fallen? It's not anywhere near as effective as saying your performance is not up to the standard that we require. The term service or performance gap is the difference between the set standard and the actual performance of the staff member. In the diagram, you can see that the standard does not change. What changes over time is poor performance for that standard, the result being the service or performance gap. Over time, staff members can become complacent. Performance can slip if it's not monitored by a supervisor or manager. This is when you have a gap in staff members' performance. Many people's first reaction when they notice this performance gap is to think of training. But training may not always be the answer. There are many reasons for this gap, and we will look at some possible causes next. So the reason for poor performance and the creation of the service or the performance gap are many and varied. They can include insufficient time. Do your staff members have enough time to complete the tasks to the standard required? Don't make SOPs so cumbersome that they cannot actually be delivered in a real-world setting. There is a lack of staff or equipment. If your staff members are under pressure because you don't have enough staff or the correct equipment, no amount of training will rectify this service or performance gap. So in designing your SOPs, you must factor in staffing levels. There is no point having an SOP that can only be delivered infrequently. No standards have been set. If there are no standards set, then your staff members have no clear understanding of the levels of performance that is required for each task in your business. You may have set standards, but they have not been properly communicated or understood. You must ensure that from the start, everybody understands what standards are and why they are necessary. Decide what is the best way to communicate each SOP to your employees. Images, even videos, might be a better way of communicating an SOP than in writing, particularly if your employees have difficulty with literacy or English is not their first language. Inadequate supervision. Likewise, if the level of supervision is inadequate or haphazard, if the standards are not being measured, staff will get away with underperforming, and they know it. No training. If no training has been provided, it is highly unlikely that your staff members will be capable of achieving your standards. Demotivated staff and personal problems. Sometimes staff members know how to perform the task correctly to the standard required, but are demotivated and do not care, or perhaps they are experiencing some personal difficulties which are impacting on their performance in work. So it's very important that you check out the reasons for poor performance before you carry out training. Otherwise, you may be wasting your time and adding to the frustrations of your staff. We must all recognize that how we deliver our customer experiences, it's changing. And as a result, our SOPs must also adapt and change. To learn more about developing and implementing standards of performance in your business, please visit Fáilte Ireland's Support Hub. We will now take a look at an approach to operational skills training, following a widely recognized structure used in operational skills training known as the ABC method. Often, as a new trainer, the thoughts of training somebody to become a waiter, an accommodation assistant, a receptionist, bar person, or chef can seem quite daunting, just like trying to eat a whole elephant. But remember, to eat an elephant, all you have to do is eat one bite at a time, and the same principle applies to training. As a trainer, you break down the job so that you can focus and train the individual tasks. Here, the grapevine is like the job. Well, let's take a bar person, for example. The bunches of grapes represent the duties, and these include such things as the service of drinks, service of food, stock control, cleaning, cash handling, etc. Each grape in the bunch represents an individual task. The task is the smallest part of a job that is complete in itself. For instance, pouring a pint, opening a bottle of beer, slicing a lemon, and making an Irish coffee. The trainer breaks the job down so that they focus and train the individual operational tasks. To be a good trainer demands preparation. There is a saying, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. As a trainer, your preparation must include, firstly, preparing yourself. Make sure that the language you use is clear and concise so that it can be easily understood by your learner. Be motivated and enthusiastic about the skill you are training. Remember, behavior breeds behavior. And if you're excited, your learner is likely to be excited also. Remember that you must have the requisite knowledge of the task and the standard that you are about to train. And where possible, try and inject some humor into your training. It helps if the learning process is fun. Have patience. Just because you have a wealth of experience and you can perform a task in your sleep, it does not mean that your learner can. All learners are different and they all learn at a different pace. Prepare the environment. You must ensure that the location of the training is correct and appropriate for the task that is being trained. Make sure that the training environment is free from obvious distractions and it should be comfortable in terms of lighting, temperature, and of course, noise levels. It's also very important that the learner has a clear, unobstructed view of what is being taught, and the training should be delivered at a suitable time. Prepare your training materials, which should include any props or equipment you are going to use and of course the learner will use. They need to be readily available. They should be clean, safe, and in good working order. There needs to be a sufficient quantity to fulfill the training requirements, and all materials should be appropriate for the task being trained. Prepare your learner. Have an understanding as to why your learner needs this training and communicate this to them. Ensure that they are motivated to learn. Be aware of your learner's ability and previous experience. Where possible, give your learner prior notice of what you are going to train. The learner will not be too pleased if you call them in for training just as they're about to go home, or if you keep them way past their clocking off time. Make sure your timing is right. Your preparation to train should always include drawing up a training or a session plan. You can see a sample on screen now. Note that it has a section for the ABC structure of a training session, which we will discuss shortly. Training plans are absolutely essential for all trainers, no matter how experienced you are. They ensure consistency across your training delivery and keep you on track to cover all of the essential standards and points of information. As a new trainer, the more detailed the training plan, the better the trainer you will become. As you become more experienced and more expert, both in using the ABC structure and as an operational skills trainer, you will or should continue to use training plans. This training session plan template is available as a downloadable resource as part of this program. Whenever you watch the news on television, the presenter will always start off by grabbing your attention. They do this through the use of headlines, which tend to be dramatic, encouraging you to want to find out more. Once they have your attention, they describe each headline in more detail, and that forms the main body of the news. The news has a third element in that they provide a summary of all of the important points covered. So the three parts to the news format are headlines to grab your attention, breakdown in detail in terms of the main body of the news, and then finally a summary. We recommend the same approach or format for an operational skills training session. We say that training is as easy as A, B, C. Get the learner's attention, break the task down, and then check that the learning has taken place. In the following slides, we will discuss this ABC structure in more detail. So the first part of a training process is the attention phase. It is vital that you get the learner's attention before you proceed with delivering your training. When developing your attention phase, we would encourage you to use the mnemonic TIP, which stands for tell, title, involve, interest, and personalize the benefits. The trainer must ensure that he or she tells the learner the title of the task or skill that they are going to learn. This must be clear and concise and inclusive of all standards if relevant. For example, if I said, today I'm going to show you how to set a table for two. This would not be a good title as it is not clear. Is it a table for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner? Is it for table tennis, or is it a football league table? This title is too vague. However, if I said, today I'm going to show you how to set a table for two for lunch to the standard required in our restaurant, this is a much better title as there is no ambiguity. It is very clear as to what you are going to train and what the learner is going to learn. You want the learner to be very clear on exactly what you are going to teach them, because this helps them to focus their mind on the task or skill which they are about to learn. The whole purpose of involve or interest is to provide another opportunity to get the learner's attention. You want to involve or focus the learner's mind on the task that they are about to learn, and this can be achieved in several ways. You could show the learner the end product, what they can achieve at the end of the training session. You could invite comparisons. This is always a good way of focusing the learner's attention, to be able to notice the differences between a standard and a substandard product. You could ask the learner questions like, What did they think of the product? Does it remind them of anything, etc.? You could tell them a story or give them an interesting fact about the task or product. If you are telling a story, please keep it short and make sure that it's relevant to the task that will be trained. Whichever one or combination of methods you choose to use, it must be related to your task that you are about to train and demonstrate. In general, adults will only learn if they want to. So as a trainer, you must try and entice the learner to learn the task. You need to give them the reason for wanting to learn. In other words, you need to answer the question, what's in it for me? What will I get out of this training? So personal benefits may include such things as you will learn a new skill that is fundamental to your job. You can use this new skill in work, but also outside of work to impress your family and friends. It will aid you in your journey for promotion. This is a difficult task, so you will derive great personal satisfaction when you are able to master it. You will be able to assist others in the team, or it will aid you in terms of efficiency, professionalism, health and safety at work, etc. It is very important that the stated benefits is personal to each learner. To recap the TIP, tell the learner the title, what they will learn. Involve the learner's mind on the task so that they will think about the task. And personalize the benefits that the learner is likely to receive from this training. The TIP can be delivered in any order or sequence, but they must be completed before you start the breakdown. If you're halfway through the breakdown and you suddenly remember to include the interest or the personal benefits, well, to be honest with you, that's a bit like calling the fire brigade after your house is burnt down. We are now going to look at the breakdown section in detail. This is the main part of the training session and is where the actual training begins. In your training session, you will break each task down into a series of logical steps. You may be familiar with the term procedure. So each step represents the bullet point or numbers in your procedure. What is the first step, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc.? If there are a lot of steps involved in your task, it will be too long and there will be too much information for your learner to remember all in one go. So we break the steps down into manageable chunks of learning, and these chunks we call stages. The number of stages in any training session will be based on the complexity of the task, the number of steps that are involved, and the learner's previous experience and knowledge. Make sure that the steps and the information you give are delivered in a logical sequence and that the delivery and the pace is correct for learning, not too fast and not too slow. Working from your training or session plan, you will start to demonstrate the steps in the task to the learner. For the demonstration to be clear, the learner must be beside the trainer, not opposite them, and the pace of the demonstration must be right. The trainer must demonstrate and the learner must watch. You cannot demonstrate and allow the learner to practice at the same time, as very little learning will take place, because all the learner is doing is just copying you. It is also important to remember that when we say demonstrate, we mean demonstrate. It's not good enough to perform the task and hope that the learner is watching. That's why we explain what we're doing, and we use words like, see this, look at that, note the shape here. In doing this, we can ensure that the learner is following the steps as demonstrated. So as you are demonstrating, you're explaining the process in detail, focusing on the key points that relate to your standards. You stress why these are important to help develop your learner's level of understanding of the task. Charles Handy, an Irish-born author and philosopher specializing in organizational behavior and management, he said, if you don't explain the why, the how-tos won't work. So it's really important to explain why you're doing things and why these are important to the task or your standard. Questions are an essential tool in training. And as trainers, we need to understand why we ask questions, when, and how we use them. You should ask questions periodically during your demonstration to check that the learner is mentally present and engaged, understands the information given, and can reason things out. Questions that start with what, where, when, why, who, and how are known as open questions. They require an answer with an explanation. Closed questions are those that require a simple yes or no answer. Trainers should predominantly use open questions in their training sessions. Remember that the purpose of the trainer asking questions as they are demonstrating is to ensure that the learner is following the trainer mentally and is not wondering what they will cook for dinner later on that evening. There should be at least one question per stage. Once you have finished demonstrating and explaining the steps in a stage, you ask the learner if they have any questions, and then you invite them to practice the steps as you have demonstrated. As the learner practices, you can encourage them by saying things like, "Good job," "Well done," etc. Do not ask them to explain what they are doing or talk you through the process. Do not ask any questions or provide them with any additional information as they practice. And do not attempt to interrupt other than to correct a mistake. And if you do have to correct a mistake, please be aware of the language you use, the tone of your voice, and your body language. Remember, we want to build and not knock the learner's confidence. Once they have successfully completed their practice, praise them, and then start to demonstrate and explain the steps in the next stage as the learner looks on. When you finish the steps in this stage, again, invite the learner to catch up and practice what you have just demonstrated. You will continue with this approach until the task has been fully completed. Remember, the number of stages in each task will depend on the complexity of the task and the learner's knowledge and previous experience. Some simple tasks will have just one stage. Other, more complicated tasks could have 5 or 6 stages. So this ends your training delivery. You should add no more information after this point. The final part of your operational skills training session is the check section. This is where we check that the learning has taken place and that the learner can physically perform the task to the standard required. The check section comprises of 3 elements. They are 1, the verbal check, 2, the practical check, and 3 is where we praise and link forward. The verbal check must come before the practical check, as the rationale is that if the learner can talk you through the process and fully answer any questions asked, then it would follow that they should be able to perform the task completely from start to finish in the correct sequence, unaided. The verbal check questions and responses should focus on the steps, the explanations, and all of the key points mentioned or demonstrated during the breakdown. Ideally, there should be a verbal check question on each key point or standard. These questions should be asked in the order in which they were presented during the breakdown. Do not attempt to mix them up and cause confusion. The questions you pose and the answers you get will tell you, yes, this learner has understood and can now do the task unaided or not. Once you are happy with the verbal check, you will then carry out your practical check. Here, you will ask the learner to perform the whole task from start to finish unaided. Before the practical check starts, remove all props or training work. These must be removed so that the learner has no visual clues to copy and is practicing unassisted. As before, you can encourage but do not interrupt the learner other than to correct mistakes. When the learner has successfully completed the task, praise them for the job well done, and then tell them when they will have an opportunity to practice the newly acquired skills and apply the learnings. Remember the saying, use it or lose it, and this applies to skills. Your learner must have an opportunity to practice newly learned skills as soon as possible. Otherwise, they will put the training to the back of their mind and possibly forget. Link forward. Tell the learner what they are going to learn next if this is known. Set them up for the next training session. So just to recap, there are 3 sections to an operational training skills session. They are the attention section, which includes TIP. Tell, title. Involve, interest. Personalize, benefits. The breakdown section, which is where the actual training delivery is carried out, it comprises of steps and stages. The task is broken down into key steps and stages, and you demonstrate. Whilst you demonstrate, you explain what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then you ask questions periodically to keep the learner involved and engaged. The learner practices at the end of each stage. The final section is the check section. And remember the types of check. You have a verbal check, which always comes first, followed by the practical check, where the learner is allowed to practice the task completely from start to finish, unaided. You end the session by praising the learner and linking forward to the next session, or by informing them when they will get an opportunity to practice the newly acquired skills. Please view the media clip, which is available in the resource section, where you will see a piece of operational skills training carried out following the ABC structure. See if you can identify the various components of the session. Did the trainer use a training or a session plan? If they did, can you see where it was situated? Look out for the tip. What method was used? How many steps and stages were there? Was there a verbal check and a practical check? Did the trainer praise and link forward? You might find this checklist useful. It's also available as a download in our resource section. It will certainly help you reflect on the ABC structure, and it will definitely help you to become a better trainer. In a way, it's your own personal and private feedback from you to you. That brings us to the end of our introduction to operational skills training. I hope you have found it useful. For you, the operational skills training journey is just beginning, and the important message from this session should be to face into that journey with a positive mindset and enthusiasm, focused on making a real difference to the quality of your training delivery. Treat this journey as an exciting opportunity for you and your business, not just as a task to be completed and rushed through. If you do, you will see over time improvements to your team's skills and performance, your business, and your customer satisfaction levels. We ask that you please practice training using the structure taught. We know it might seem difficult, and we do appreciate it's a lot to take in, but it really is worth persisting with it. The more you practice, the more you will learn. Your staff, your customers, and your business will benefit. Be sure to take full advantage of the supporting downloads available in the resource section. Some other links that you or your team may also find useful on Fáilte Ireland's Learning and Support Hubs are an introduction to customer service, the fundamentals of food and beverage service, developing and implementing standards of performance. Thank you for taking time to view this operational skills training program. Enjoy your operational skills training journey.